How's it going, guys? This is Ryan with SDAP, and I'm here at Thomas Pizza with Lori Stacey. She's running for Secretary of State, and the whole point of the interview with all these candidates is to talk about their stance on medical marijuana and marijuana policy in general. So here's Lori Stacey, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about that position. Say hi, Lori.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, this is a real passionate issue of mine, especially as a constitutionist. When Ryan said he wanted to interview me, I quickly thought of like the first top 10 reasons why I am actually not only for medical marijuana, but totally against, as a constitutionist, the war on drugs entirely. And this has been a position that I haven't always had, but as I got more and more into looking at our constitutional principles and became involved with the Constitution Party 7 years ago, I realized that some of my stances I had in the past really were against our freedoms and liberties, and really wasn't the proper stance to be taking as someone that truly believes in defending and standing up for the Constitution. So I'm going to go ahead because it's such a huge topic. I actually wrote out the first 10 things that I'm very passionate about this issue, and why I believe we actually need to end the war on drugs. Number one, this whole war on drugs issue gives the government an excuse to bust down your door in the middle of the night, terrorize families by carrying automatic weapons, pointing it at them. These raids, in many cases, we've heard the horror stories that a lot of times they're on the wrong address. Therefore, it's being done without a warrant because they don't even have the right address that the warrant was for. And so it's further eroding or shredding our Fourth Amendment rights. Without this war on drugs, a vast majority of the reasons for these types of raids on our citizens' homes would be completely eliminated, if you think about it. Number two, there was never supposed to be any such thing as a victimless crime. That's really an oxymoron. The only governments in history that have imprisoned their citizens for actions they are doing only to themselves, and usually in the privacy of their own homes, have been tyrannical governments. And here we are. And number three, the scam of the war on drugs also opens up many other abuses of our rights under the Constitution. One of the 8 main focuses of my campaign for Secretary of State, in fact, is restoring the right to vote that has been stripped away from many of our residents. People unconstitutionally locked up for victimless offenses are then in essence stripped of their right to vote, which is equivalent to me of declaring them a non-citizen. When we allow one abusive government to continue, here they roll. More and more it'll lead to. And that is really all our fault. We the people, it's our fault that we are allowing this stuff to snowball into the point that it's gotten now, which is shameful. Number four, a lot of people don't realize 30 years ago, a Los Angeles narcotics officer named Michael Ruppert, I would encourage people to Google him, Michael R-U-P-P-E-R-T. He is unfortunately now not living, but I think he died about a year or so ago. But anyway, 30 years ago, he busted a story wide open while he was on the Los Angeles Police Department. And he basically did his work. He did a great job. He was passionate about the narcotics issue because he was a former addict himself. And so he really tracked down where the drugs in America were, how they were coming in. And what he did was he ran right up the chain, and it stopped right with our own CIA. So our tax dollars are being spent to fraudulently fight a war on drugs that is largely being run by the very government entities that we are paying to fight it in the first place. Okay. Since then, since his report 30 years ago, we've also found state governors, members of law enforcement, involved in having a hand in the whole drug issue. And so for that reason, that's why I call the war on drugs a scam. It's just taking our money to try and fight something that they're profiting from and they're doing themselves. That's ridiculous. So that's number 4. Number 5, as a Christian, I hate the consequences of locking people up for these victimless crimes. It wrongly destroys the families. It wrongly destroys young people's lives, breaks up their families, millions of families all across our nation. And so for compassionate reasons, I'm also against it. And then we get to the medical issues. For medical reasons, I'm very passionate about the right of families to use natural alternatives to the dangerous and unhealthy pharmaceutical drugs that most people currently use. It's heart-wrenching personally to try and get a cancer patient, for instance, to even look at other alternatives, because people are so brainwashed by modern medicine, shall we say, and the pharmaceutical industry and their basic influence over our doctors. Hemp oil has, for one has been very successful in study after study on virtually every type of cancer. And so so that brings us to the hemp question, which is a whole nother list of reasons. The entire issue of a prohibition on growing hemp is really a scam. I mean, you can't get high, as Congressman Ron Paul said during his campaign, you would have to smoke pretty much a telephone pole's amount of hemp to, if ever, get high on hemp. So there's absolutely no legitimate reason to be coupling hemp with the smoking of marijuana. There just isn't. Hemp actually has over 30,000 uses. It could bring a boom to our economy in terms of providing better jobs, such as in manufacturing here in South Dakota. It would also provide a boom to our farmers who used to lead the nation in growing hemp for the World War II war effort. Most people don't know hemp used to be the #1 crop in the United States. I mean, it literally grows like weeds, especially in the northern plains. And so that used to be a fantastic source of revenue and jobs for South Dakotans way back when. So it's ridiculous to have the two coupled together, number one. It's ridiculous for either one of them to be against the law, number two. And our very own founding documents were actually written on hemp paper. So how hypocritical or how ridiculous of a nation have we become when we've outlawed the growing of a natural plant that very product was used to write our own founding documents. And I mean, it just doesn't get any worse than that. I mean, it's bad. So those are really the top 10 things that come to mind right off the bat. There's many other reasons, but I just wanted people to know, a different perspective. If you looked at it as a constitutional perspective or a human compassionate perspective when it comes to medical uses and uses, in providing better jobs for our people so they're not struggling, and not to mention all the young people, especially, that their families have been torn apart because they're behind bars for something our founding fathers never intended them to be in jail for. So that, for those reasons and more, I am really totally against the war on drugs. And like I said, I haven't always had this position, but I really truly believe this is the right position for freedom.
It's absolutely a great position to have. Obviously, the prohibitionist lies are being exposed every day. There was recently a congressional hearing about rescheduling cannabis from Schedule 1 that has no medical value. A lot of doctors went and testified to the fact that it does. You had cited some of the studies that you had seen. PTSD is definitely a big one for South Dakota with the level of rape that goes on in this state and with all the soldiers that are coming back from the desert and all the horrors that they've seen.
Absolutely.
PTSD isn't limited to just violence. It's anything traumatic that happens in your life. It could be a car accident. It could be almost drowning. It could be anything.
Yeah.
PTSD is a huge problem in South Dakota, and so is suicide.
Yeah, like I said, this is a compassionate human rights issue that I think people are missing. It's not about, people think stereotypically about this subject, and that scam works well. It's been working well on a lot of people, including myself in the past. But this really is not just about somebody wanting the freedom, to light up a joint on a Saturday night. It goes way, way deeper than that. It's a way, way broader issue.
The whole notion of you're a hippie if you support this cause, we're doing everything we can to chip away at that. As you can see, Lori's a very respectable woman running for state office. She's not a hippie. She supports this.
Absolutely. It's a freedom issue, folks. It's a freedom issue.
Anything else you'd like to say to SDAP?
Get out there and vote. Counting on you. You gotta, you can't complain if you're not going to be part of the process. So get out there and vote, and hopefully in the future, more people will be able to vote. Because I really believe that no one's voting rights should be taken away for any reason. That is basically like calling them a non-citizen. And so I want everybody to vote. I want our true votes to be heard on election night. I want the count to be right. And we need to go back to hand counting them. And let's get the real voice of South Dakota out there in the future.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your time, Lori.
Thank you.
This is Ryan with SDAP signing out.